Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers, and certainly hope that you're enjoying your Derby weekend. What do the disaster declarations for ice storms and flooding mean for parts of Kentucky? We'll be talking to representatives from FEMA and the Small Business Association about the help that is now available in some hard-hit areas. That is later. But first, the housing market around the country and here in Kentucky is red hot, and many are moving up or cashing in. New estimates are that more than 10% of homeowners plan to move in the next year. But the boom is also revealing some real problems and challenges with affordable housing. And even those pre-approved are finding themselves having trouble finding a place and then heading into a dramatic situation with multiple offers and that sort of thing as they're looking at something they like. Joining us from the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors is the CEO, Justin Landon, getting us up to date on some of the trends, and this year's LBAR President, Kristy Gooch, who is a longtime real estate broker. Welcome. We appreciate both of you being here.
Thanks for having us, Bill.
Justin, the numbers coming out nationally show the challenges out there. This country has a profound housing shortage right now. It's really tough here in the Bluegrass. As we've said before, kind of a best of times, toughest of times. Some are doing very well, selling and moving on, but that's just part of what's happening out there. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing both here in central Kentucky and around the country is a simple supply and demand problem, right? We have record demand as a result of sort of historically low interest rates over a long period of time. And, despite some of the challenges that we've faced over the last 12 to 18 months, as an economy and as a country, the economy remains relatively strong. And as a result, demand for homes is at a record high. And of course, I think coming out of the pandemic too, people have sort of refocused on home as something that they're prioritizing, and they're prioritizing different things in their house maybe than they did a year ago. So we do see a lot of desire to make a move. And then on the supply side of the equation, you look at the data, and we've had a problem with building homes at the rate that we need nationwide and here locally. And as a result, we just have an imbalanced market, not enough supply and a ton of demand.
Kristy, you've been a top producer in real estate for a long time. Have you ever seen the kind of drama that's playing out right now with, often multiple offers and sometimes homes going within hours rather than days and weeks as we used to see?
Well, no, not to this extreme, definitely. Back in 1999, 2000, 2001, it was common that a house would be on the market for less than 30 days. But it's never been anything that I've ever experienced where you put a house on the market and immediately you have, 10, 15, 20 showings in one day, producing 7, 8, 10, 12 offers. The highest offer count that I've seen within our office was 33 on one house that was on the market for 2 days. So it's definitely new for realtors. However, we are equipped to handle it and guide and lead the sellers and the buyers through these interesting times in order to help them secure the home that they need. And
oftentimes the asking price, which used to be, the folks selling a home would hope they've got there, now that's a starting price because the offers keep coming in and people are buying homes for more than the asking price, right?
Correct. We are definitely in a seller's market, and nationally prices are up 17% year over year, while locally they're up 12% year over year. And I will note, though, that nationally the average house price is $329, and locally we're at $215. So we're still a lower price point to purchase in the country, but we are definitely seeing some inflation.
So what do you tell buyers to do that would make their offer float to the top when sellers, start looking over those offers?
Well, of course, in the end, the decision is always the buyers to make on what they want to offer. However, we advise them to put their best foot forward. Usually, if you have a house that is contingent on closing, that does definitely sway a potential seller in choosing your offer because they want the least contingency possible in order to be able to make sure that deal gets to closing and they don't have to put it back on the market.
Justin, it's asking a lot of real estate professionals right now. Many buyers out there just aren't wired to make a $300,000 or $400,000 decision in a matter of minutes. That it's going to be years and years of their life that they're going to be somewhere. And we also know others have stopped looking in this environment. Is this issue in the Lexington area going to improve anytime soon, or is this really going to take some policies being addressed that aren't being talked about enough right now?
Well, that's a fun question, but that's an easy one right there, right? Let me get my crystal ball out. I think I get asked this question a lot, sort of like, is this the new normal? What should we be advising buyers and or sellers about what the next year will bring? And obviously we don't really know the answer to that question, but what I do know is that solving a supply problem is not an overnight thing, right? So even if tomorrow lumber prices got back to normal, supply chains across the country were reinvigorated, and we removed all impediments to development across the country and across the region, we'd still be 3, 4, 5 years away from sort of catching up or solving some of this supply side problem. So supply is going to remain tight, and I don't really see any scenario where that changes. So really the only way that the market experiences a correction is if buyer demand slows. And the two things that would affect buyer demand are interest rates rapidly rising, which I don't really see happening. The Fed's been pretty clear that that's not going to happen. And the second one would be, some major economic shift, in which case, real estate's sort of dealing with the same things that the entire economy is dealing with. And as we see instability in the economy, real estate will always remain a pretty safe investment. And I think that's why we're seeing this big rush of demand. We're certainly seeing more out-of-state buyers than we have in the past. We're certainly seeing more cash offers than we have in the past, more investors looking at real estate as a really solid investment. And one thing I want to make sure that we mention is I don't want to, the buyer anxiety is really high, but we're also seeing quite a bit of seller anxiety, because as they're looking to sell, they're very anxious about where they're going to go. And one of the things that I really want to make sure that the public understands is that realtors have tools to protect sellers contractually. So what we're starting to see now are kinds of agreements where the seller is contractually giving themselves a period of time to look and find a replacement property before they close on with a buyer on theirs. And that's the kind of thing that you're really going to look for a realtor to help you with, to make sure that as a seller or a buyer that you're protected and given the opportunity to find what you need to be to find your piece of the American dream.
It's a pretty complicated scenario right now, right? You do need somebody who has some experience working through some of these things. Would you say agree with that right now, Justin? That real estate is about as complicated as it's ever been?
Yeah, there's no question. What we're seeing a lot of is sort of like this chain of events. In normal times, a seller lists, buyer buys, seller goes and finds their new house, buyer sells their house. But what we're seeing now is a chain of events where, the buyer has to sell their house to buy, seller has to find a house to sell, and you've got 3 or 4 transactions lined up. It's sort of like trying to run an aircraft carrier in terms of getting all those ships in the air and then all those planes in the air and then recovering them. That's kind of what a real estate transaction is like now. You need an entire flight crew to make it happen.
Justin, we see older homes right now being substantially upgraded and flipped. That has been ongoing. Some indication that maybe some of that is slowing across the country. It really represents opportunity for some, but that can also quickly put a neighborhood out of reach for others. And so, gentrification is continuing to be quite an issue across the country and here in this region.
Yeah, gentrification's a challenging topic. Certainly here in our community, what we're starting to see is that, a lot of the decisions that we've made about land use, good or bad, have put some pressure on infill and redevelopment, which does impact neighborhoods and their historical character, because that's where the development and the growth has to occur. And it is disruptive at times. One of the things that I know Kristy feels pretty strongly about, and I'll let her comment on after I sort of introduce it, is that what we're seeing quite a bit of is investors go into neighborhoods and a practice called wholesaling, which is where they're approaching homeowners, buying their house for cash or entering into a contract to buy their house and then flipping that contract or quickly flipping the house to an investor who's then going to do the work and then and upgrade it. What we really want to make sure that people are doing is that they're contacting a professional if they're going to consider selling their house. It's not to say that a cash offer from an investor isn't the best, may be the right answer, but it may not be. And I think you really need to contact a professional. I'm sure Kristy's dealt with some of those.
Yeah, Kristy, talk about that a little bit. You know, the postcards are flying and calls are being made, and people getting those offers for a cash deal a quick cash deal for their homes.
Right. So what we're seeing is that those postcards and those solicitations are going out to an entire neighborhood, asking them if they're looking to sell their home quickly for cash. Well, the reality of it is there tends to be, or seems to be currently, an infusion of cash in our economy in the purchase offer market within the real estate sales. So what we're doing is we are putting the house out on the open market. So the open market can determine what this price escalation will be for that sale. Just like you said earlier, we're getting multiple offers at over asking price. So we believe that it's in the best interest of all sellers to put their house on the open market so they can achieve whatever the difference the wholesaler would have gotten for the price they gave versus the price that they're going to turn around and sell the property for. That is the seller's home. They deserve to earn all the equity. And another thing I want to mention is a lot of times wholesalers aren't doing anything to the property. They're just selling it, and then they're turning right around and putting it back on the market to their small group of investors, 8, 10, 12 people, whoever it might be, and they're selling it for a profit. So it's definitely not a hard time in our industry right now in the housing market to sell a home. It's just making sure that you're represented so you get the most that you possibly can for your property.
Kristy, let me ask you this. When people do go in with an offer that's substantially above the asking price, are you running into situations where the appraisal for the loan doesn't come in and therefore the deal falls through because of that?
Well, we have seen that happen. What we're also seeing right now is a situation in which buyers that are being very aggressive or waiving their appraisal contingencies. So if you're a cash buyer, or if you are a buyer that doesn't require an appraisal to close on the property, then that's part of the aggressiveness that the buyers are coming to the table with. They're trying to eliminate all contingencies in order to make the seller feel like they have the most solid offer in the pack of offers they receive after just a few hours on the market.
Justin, your service area is large. It includes Lexington and the surrounding counties, and then south to the Tennessee border. Tell us a little bit about, is it the same situation? You know, we know that in central Kentucky, Madison and Jessamine and Scott are all growing very quickly, and they're starting to maybe hit some guardrails in some of those areas as well. And then south into southern Kentucky and the lake regions. Are you seeing the same kinds of trends?
Yeah, I mean, real estate is always very local, right? I mean, and so it's unique in every market or sub-market within our larger market. I would say that the counties adjacent to Fayette County are largely experiencing sort of similar effects. Madison County, Scott County, you know, those are going to be similar markets to Fayette County. You know, as you get down into Laurel County, London, or you know, Knox County or Whitley County, Pulaski County, I mean, it's definitely a different market, but you know, they're not seeing the 30 offers maybe on a property, but they are short of supply and they have high demand. So a lot of the same things are happening. It's just not quite as extreme as you're seeing up here, and a lot of that's being driven by the, you know, not just the owner occupied purchasers. That's because we're seeing the investors up here too, right? People who are adding on to the already demand from the folks that want to live in the house. Now, when you're in the larger market like Fayette County, you're also dealing with that investor class.
Kristy, a final question, you know, and this is for buyers or sellers. For those out there looking right now, are there typical types of amenities people are looking for? Has the pandemic changed the outlook on what people are looking for? Do they want more property, for instance, or what are you seeing?
Well, first floor masters are definitely hot on the market. If you have a first floor master or the buyer is looking for a first floor master. I had a referral coming in from Washington just over the last week, and they are moving here because they want to move out of the city. So there's definitely an influx of people moving to Kentucky because we're more of a rural community. Another item that they're wanting to see, or another items that they want to see in their homes, is they like them to be in really good condition. They're not as picky as they were a few years ago, the buyers in our market. However, the more updated or pristine that your home is, the more it will bring at the sales contract time.
All right. And Kristy Gooch and Justin Landon from LBAR, we appreciate you very much for getting us up to date, and we'll be checking in, following these trends, because every time we see the numbers, as we said, there's more drama out there. We appreciate it.